Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. We're waking up with watches. It might be the weekend, it might be early in the week, but we're starting our day off right with the newest Vacheron Constantin overseas launch for 2024. This is the self-winding in 5N red gold with a new green metallic sunburst dial. It's also the new reference. People ask me, why did the overseas self-winding reference number change? Well, we're going to see why in a moment. 41 millimeters in diameter. This is 5N red gold with lots and lots of copper to make it deep and rich and intense. It's a tonneau case design, and it's a tribute to the 1977 Vacheron 222, as every overseas is in some way. But on my wrist, I have to say it's somewhere between a 5711 and a Royal Oak Offshore and how it wears. Maybe one could even say somewhere between a 15510 and an Offshore in terms of how it wears. It definitely has a lot of mass. It's broad across the wrist, especially on the bracelet. It does come with a leather strap, calfskin, and a rubber strap, both green. So you can change the look and the fit a little bit, but on the bracelet, it feels massive and broad. I'd recommend it for a wrist no smaller than 15 centimeters circumference, mine is 16. The bracelet is changed quite a bit from previous generations, and I think this is where you start to see how the new reference number is justified. The trigger for releasing the bracelet from the case is much easier to use. It used to be that you really needed a long, sharp fingernail to grab it. Now it's much more accessible, which is great for me because I have to manicure my nails for these videos. This makes my life a whole lot easier. Inside the clasp, you can see that the design has changed entirely. More complex, broader, it's designed to chafe the wrist less, and the swing arms are a little bit more substantial than in the past. So this has changed. The quick release trigger has changed. We still have the little 1.5 millimeter sleeved micro adjustments on each side of the clasp, so that has not changed. Also not changed, every single link in the bracelet is removable. You can see there's a little intermediate sized link in there too, in case you find yourself in between sizes. And just take a look, every single link here removable with those two micro adjustments. You are going to get the right fit. The bracelet is beautifully made too, as you can see these little polished crevices inside of the bracelet glistening as you roll through the light. We have the Maltese cross motif, which is the logo of the brand, and then the shoulders of the individual links. You can see the rolled bevel down their flanks. A beautiful watch in every regard. We've got the dial, several different models this year in 5N rose gold with this metallic green sunburst dial. I think it shows best on the least cluttered application, which is the self-winding. We do have plenty of lume, no shortage in that regard. Rose gold hands, logo, and indices. And we have that Maltese cross, again, that is the inspiration for the design of the bezel. We have it on the crown, and we have it on the movement. In fact, it's so easy to just remove this bracelet. I can do so and show you the caliber 5100. 5-position adjustment with Geneva hallmark. Those are features you want to hear about on a super premium watch. You can see Geneva hallmark on the movement, but also on the case, as the standard has, for the last 12 years, pertained to the entire watch, not just the movement. 2 barrels, 60-hour power reserve. It's more water resistant than any Holy Trinity sports watch except the Royal Oak Offshore Diver. This is 150 more than any Aquanaut, Nautilus, Standard Royal Oak, or Offshore Chronograph. Only the divers are more water resistant in the Offshore line. We have a 22 karat gold mass with a compass rose design and at least 4 different finishes. Mirrored anglage, broad stripes with a nice shading to them. You can see even the jewel and the screw sinks feature internal beveling. And it is a gorgeous movement, properly sized for this case at, I believe, 30.6 to 30.8 millimeters. It is an in-house caliber, and you can see that it is anti-magnetic, not because of any inherent quality of the movement, but because there is a soft iron paramagnetic ring around the caliber that helps to channel magnetic field lines around the hairspring and the escapement. You can see just how easy it is to put this watch back together again. just like that car seat belt buckle. Okay, let's say you have less money to spend on your luxury full bracelet sports watch. Well, Omega has you covered here. This model came out in 2015, though very few of them made it to market until almost a year later, because it was a launch platform for the Master Chronometer caliber 8900, and it was a big deal at the time. The return of the pie pan constellation, as this is the Omega Constellation Globemaster. We have that faceted dial design that rose to fame in the early 50s on the original 1952 Connie. We have blackened indices and hands for high contrast against the silver dial. 39 millimeters, 12.9 millimeters thick. We have a fluted tungsten bezel that has a nice tonal difference between its color and that of the case. The watch is about 47 millimeters lug to lug, but if you add the end lengths of the bracelet, the total distance across the wrist is beefier at 52 millimeters. So just keep that in mind. On the bracelet, this watch wears quite a bit larger than its rated case size. Open up the clasp, throw it on the wrist. It's a good looking watch. The Globemaster is one of my favorite and indeed one of the most underrated Omega models, and you can see what a good look it is. It's an all-arounder. It's not strictly a dress watch or a sports watch, though in favor of using it every day. It's hugely anti-magnetic, shock-resistant, 100 meters water-resistant, automatic winding, full bracelet, and yes, it is quite well loomed. It's also got some of the big boy features that come with Omega's twin barrel movements, including a independently mobile hour hand for traveling time zones. This is very handy if you are a traveler. And note, it doesn't stop the movement. It doesn't displace the minute hand. You can put the watch in hacking seconds mode now and stop the seconds hand and adjust everything. Note that little star. The original Constellation was an observatory chronometer, and the case back won't let you forget it. You can see caliber 8900 in there, 60 hours, master chronometer, shock resistant, anti-magnetic, coaxial, George Daniels conceived escapement using tangential friction rather than the sliding friction of a standard Swiss lever. Still probably the most sophisticated escapement you can buy for under $50,000. The movement is not artisanal, but it is worth looking at and deserves a display case back, particularly for the blackened screws and the spiral arabesque Côte de Genève. Now, if you need something smaller still, in 2017, Girard-Perregaux hooked you up. This is the Laureato 38. Now, it is a mid-size watch. It's not strictly speaking a lady's watch or a man's watch. And you can see on my wrist it wears nicely. The original Laureato 4266 of 1975 was very similar to this in size, far more similar to this than the larger Laureatos. So while this is smaller, it's also more traditional and closer to the originally conceived idea of what a Laureato should look like on the wrist. All in steel. It's got a caliber 3300 inside, and it's 100 meters water resistant. It's got a lovely pyramid style dial with the little pyramid hobnails that does nice things with light as you move it through. We'll turn the light off. You can see the watch quite luminescent. We have the faceted Laureato style bezel, which is echoed in the design of the crown. And then on the rear, we have a GP in-house caliber 3300. It's quite nicely decorated. You can see from this angle, the bevels are handsome. The stripes, both linear and circular, are of the perfunctory variety, but they're attractive, and we have engine turning on both the outer edge, the bridges, as well as on the base plate. My favorite feature here, that beautifully solarized barrel cover, and then the ratchet wheel above. Now, it's a 46-hour power reserve, unidirectional winder, 4 Hz beat rate with stop seconds and a quick set. So from a technical standpoint, it's still very, very capable, and it is GP's own movement. Screw-down crown, a real 100-meter water resistance, not a soft 100. Fully integrated bracelet, double deployant clasp, a great way to go. And I'd probably prefer this size over the larger Laureatos. 42 seems a bit much to me. 38, that hits the spot. Well, if 42 is a bit large for me, 44 is definitely over the top, but still, that's what a lot of people look for with a Royal Oak Offshore from Audemars Piguet. Now, this example features grade 5 titanium and then gray ceramic on the bezel. The ceramic, very scratch resistant. You can also see it on the shoulder of the crown and the chronograph pusher caps. The watch is 100 meters water resistant. It comes on the diver style strap, which is nicely matched to the gray color of the ceramic bezel. The Mega tapisserie, also gray, sort of an anthracite, like a storm cloud. And then we have some blue accents with tone-on-tone registers that have polished chapterings, white gold hands, white gold indices, white gold AP logos. So these elements will never oxidize or tarnish over time. We do have a stop seconds function. for stopping the watch if you want to set it to a reference time. And you can see the base movement sitting underneath the module. That's why it seems to be buried in the dial. We have a quick set for the date. We use a Dubois de Praz vertical clutch chronograph module. So when you start the chrono, there's no extraneous motion to the seconds hand. Vertical clutches are more precise. On the rear, we'll pop open the strap, get a better look at it. It is the AP 3126 base, which is the chronograph mated version of the 3120. Bidirectional winding, 50 to 55 hour power reserve. 3 Hz beat rate. It's very durable with a full dual-anchored Batwing style balance bridge and a Gyromax style free-sprung balance. And then the watch on the wrist, not as heavy as you would expect. This is all sapphire, titanium, ceramic, and rubber. Those are all light materials. But from end link to end link across the wrist, it's almost 59 millimeters. So I'm going to say only wear this on a wrist of 17, maybe even 18 centimeters circumference. It's too big for me, but if your wrist is big, you're going to find this is a good match. And it's a good match that does it all with impeccable manners and holy trinity levels of movement finish. This will never be confused with an Hublot King Power. All right. If you want more options in the oversized sports watch class, and you want to lean more heavily on watchmaking and engineering than image and finish, then Zenith is definitely the way to go. Now, this is a 2023 launch, the Zenith Defy Extreme Carbon. It's comprised mostly of carbon fiber, titanium, and then sapphires front and rear. We have a few accents of color designed to remind you that Zenith is affiliated with the Extreme E electric rally car series, and that is a series with several different cardinal colors on its logos, so that is what inspires this. You can see there's a second sapphire that's cut almost in a clover fashion around the center dial, and each one of the sub-registers with a dark smoked sapphire in the middle. We have a little power reserve up at the top, and that is the power reserve indicator for the 1/100th of a second Foudroyant system. There are 2 barrels in this movement, independent, 2 escapements, and 2 timekeepers. One is the manually wound chronograph power reserve, which has a 50-minute duration. That's why you have a little power reserve indicator. The automatic winding system energizes the slower or traditional El Primero escapement, and you will note that this watch is not actually running. These 2 different sides, the El Primero timekeeper and the high rate chronograph, have separate power sources and trains, so when one is inactive or even completely exhausted, the other can run. So I've been running the chronograph as you watch with the watch stopped. Now, the El Primero side of things is automatic winding, but you wind the Foudroyant chronograph manually, just like this. You can see there is carbon fiber on the crown shoulder as well as the chronograph pushers, and it has a weird buzzing sound when you hold it up against the ear. You've got 2 different escapements, 50 hertz or 100 beats per second, and then 10 beats per second or 5 hertz, which is the traditional El Primero. This has infinite adjustability within the limits of its Velcro closure, so you've got the ability to really fine-tune the fit. On the back, you have push buttons that eject the strap, so you can put something else on. If you want to put on leather or alligator, the quick release system permits that, and then Zenith has you covered with strap options. On the back, you could see that the El Primero escapement, the one that beats 10 times per second, it features a silicone escapement for reduced friction, lubrication, and mass, whereas the super high rate escapement uses conventional pallet stones. And all of this is a Time-Lab certified chronometer. It is 200 meters water resistant thanks to the screw-down crown, and 45 millimeters in diameter, though at 51 millimeters lug-to-lug and made of very light materials, it doesn't necessarily wear as big as a 45 would. Let's take a look at the loom shot. You can read the time, though the chronograph is only accessible in the light. We'll throw it on my wrist so you can get a sense of its fit. So 1 escapement, 360,000 vibrations per hour, 1 escapement, 36,000 vibrations per hour, and a very aggressive sports watch. The Defy line and its faceted case and bezel dating back to 1969, so while a lot of people might think this style is a hand up from Tag Heuer or a hand down from Hublot, the stablemates in LVMH for Zenith, this is actually Zenith's own shape dating back to 1969. This is a very expressive and modern take on it, but this is all Zenith inside and out. A really cool piece, and again, probably the thinking man's alternative to an Hublot Big Bang or a Royal Oak Offshore for a lot less money. So here are two different takes on dress watches. This one, a $30,000 boutique and salon exclusive for Grand Seiko, SBGW 262, with a unique Jiboji iron and plant-based lacquer. So this is created in the region around the studio that creates this caliber 9S64. This is the Shizuku Ishii studio in Morioka, and locally, Japanese-made lacquer is pulled from vegetable sources, that is tree sap, and then the tree sap and the tree grind is refined to create the lacquer base, to which iron is added to create this rich, dark aesthetic. So this flawless black mirrored lacquer dial is then subjected to maki-e, or building up. So you have these built up individual numerals and indices, all of that painted by hand in layers to give it height and volume above the dial. That's what maki-e is. It's an additive kind of embellishment. So this is a very special watch featuring hand polishing of the case, handcraft of the dial, and a movement assembled and adjusted manually. Manual wind, 6 position adjustment, not 5 like a chronometer, but 6. 3 days of power reserve. It does feature stop seconds, and then the crown has extremely little dead angle, or the distance you turn it before the minute hand starts to move. You can also see the hands have been faceted with razor-like polished flanks and satin on top with the lanced-style counterweighted seconds hand entirely of polish. It's a good-looking watch. It's only about 43.5 millimeters from lug to lug with a 39 millimeter diameter, and this is as fine a dress watch as any you'll locate in Switzerland. The main difference being a Swiss watch, even one at this price, is, or maybe even especially one at this price, isn't going to have the same level of handcrafted movement, dial, and case finish that you find on this SBGW 262. Laurent Ferrier makes beautiful things. And it is admittedly an établisseur, so it creates the specifications and the design parameters, and then it goes to the best suppliers to get cases, hands, dials, movements. And so this is the result of a process used for a quarter of a millennium by Vacheron. So for most of its first 2.5 centuries, Vacheron was what Laurent Ferrier is today, an établisseur. So let's take a look at the parts that Laurent Ferrier has assembled to create this Galet Square. Now, the Galet Square came out in 2015. It was Laurent Ferrier's first steel watch, and that's what we have here. A vertical satination on a metallic blue dial with white gold hands and indices. You can see that the crown is unsigned, onion profiled, and slightly countersunk into the flank, so it doesn't appear too obtrusive on the side. 41 millimeters in diameter with a cushion case. It's about 47.5 lug to lug. And then you get to the back, which is a collaboration between Laurent Ferrier and La Fabrique du Temps Louis Vuitton. So it is from a super high-end watch engineering outfit owned by Louis Vuitton. So we have Ferrier, Barbacini, and Navas. That is the FBN. Those are the 3 fathers of this movement. Micro rotor with a jeweled staff and a micro ratchet, which you can probably just see the teeth of right there. A very efficient silent winding system. It's the silent winding system that would lead you to initially pick this watch up and think it's a manual wind. It is the most unobtrusive, silent, and intangible winder I've ever encountered. And then we have 72-hour power reserve, 6-position adjustment like the Grand Seiko chronometers, often Geneva Hallmark watches. They're adjusted to 5 positions. 6 is totally uncompromising. You'll take a look at the black polish on the steel bridge for the rotor, or the steel half bridge for the balance, and then look at those sharp inner angles within the skeletonized hollow of the balance cock. Also take a look at those sharp balance, or I should say sharp bevel creases on the bridges. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interior angles on this movement. Engine turning to a high degree on the base plate. Even if you look at the little crevices in the corner, you can see that those have been micro-beveled. The anglage continues all the way on. A lot of brands, that sort of crevice where small parts meet and there's a narrow lip, they will not bevel that little hollow. Moser's an example of that. Here, Laurent Ferrier bevels even those recesses on the side. And you can see that we have these lovely beveled jewel sinks and screw sinks and rich stripes. You can also appreciate that the bridges are super broad and the beveling clearly done by hand. There's an overcoil hairspring and a free-sprung balance for precise timekeeping in any position and precise adjustment via the free-sprung balance. And then below that, 2 wheels with little crenellated towers. No Swiss lever escapement here. That is a double direct impulse natural escapement, much like that created by Breguet in 1802. Each wheel impulses the balance exclusively in its direction of travel, which extends power reserve, reduces the need for lubrication, and also improves chronometry. And this watch comes with a Besançon French Observatory chronometer certificate, a sort of put-up and shut-up form of proof that Laurent Ferrier's exotic escapement and in-house adjustment works as advertised. We'll throw this on the wrist. It's definitely bigger than the Grand Seiko, though it's not big. At 41 millimeters in a cushion case, I would say it wears fairly true to size because the lug span is so short. Normally a cushion case would wear a bit big for its rated size, but because these are 47.5 millimeters lug to lug, my wrist wears it well, and it is flat enough to easily slide underneath the cuff. I always save the best for last, and in this case, this is almost like 2 showstoppers because I don't know which side of this watch is more spectacular. A 7-piece white gold limited edition from 2010. This is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Grande Tradition Grande Complication. Now this watch features everything, but let me explain. Many people are aware of the 75-piece limited edition of this watch made in 2010. Not many are aware that there was also a 7-piece limited edition, and this is part of that 7-piece edition. What makes it different is that the dial, the star chart, the constellations, the month, and the zodiac, all Greek language and Greek characters. Underneath, you can see all those different stars and constellations. Around the edge, we have the zodiac signs and the month. And the sky chart is viewed through this little oval, which I believe is still in French, because I think west is how they would say wet. O and west are the same thing in French. But we have this little metallized circle here, and that represents the sky over your head at any given time in the northern hemisphere. And that's true even in the day. The constellations are still up there, you just can't see them because of the sun. Now, what appears to be the sun at the center, that's actually a representation of Polaris, the North Star, which sits right on the Earth's axis of rotation. So when you look at the North Star, especially with time-lapse photography overnight, the sky appears to spin around the North Star. That's why the sky chart spins around that gold North Star at center. We have a little sun right here, and that represents solar mean time, or a conventional 24-hour clock day, and it's driven by a little gear underneath the bezel. So if you wonder why the bezel is so broad internally, it's because it's driving that little sun. Now the flying tourbillon, let me get that hand out of the way, the flying tourbillon makes 1 rotation of the dial per sidereal day. So we have a mean solar day represented by the sun, and then we have a sidereal day represented by this orbital tourbillon. So a sidereal day is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. So it's a little bit shorter than a clock day by about 4 minutes. So as these things advance, let me show you how this works. We have that sky chart showing you in real time what's overhead. We have the little sun moving at a different speed than the tourbillon. The tourbillon is slowly accelerating away from the sun. And I should also mention that this is a flying tourbillon, so there's no upper bridge to block your view of it. And it features a free-sprung balance with an overcoil. Overcoils are very rare in Jaeger-LeCoultre watchmaking, but this has something that's even more scarce. Look at the escapement anchor and wheel, and you can see they look blue or purple and reflective. This is one of the only Jaeger-LeCoultre models ever made, and all the models such equipped are exotic, but with a silicon escapement. All such models made are always concept watches, ultra-low production, or apex watches, flagships, pieces that show what Jaeger-LeCoultre can do. So to have an overcoil, a flying tourbillon, and a silicon escapement, this is a very, very prestigious piece from Jaeger-LeCoultre. Now, you may wonder what's driving this sky chart. Well, there's an annual calendar mechanism that actually drives these different months and zodiac signs. So that's what underpins that. So it's an annual calendar, it's a flying tourbillon, and then it's also a minute repeater. And you can see caliber 945 on the back, manual wind, 48-hour power reserve, bridges and plates of German silver. You can see the gongs on the back and the trebuchet hammer strikers. And then on the dial, you can see where the gongs are welded to the sapphire to conduct the sound undiminished by the mass of the precious metal case. It's a 44mm white gold case, though it sounds like it's made of titanium because of the welded gong that's attached to the sapphire. And I'm even going to go a little bit better and explain what the trebuchet hammer is. It has a little bit of a dog leg kink and a second stage, a little bit, if you can imagine a trebuchet, a medieval siege weapon. There's its initial rise off the ground and then a sort of pivot between the arm and the extended rope or flexible component of whatever load it's throwing. And so this has that second stage to its motion where inertia and the sudden halt of the lower part of the hammer causes the upper part to accelerate. As a result, the trebuchet hammers, which are only on very few JLC minute repeaters, they strike the gong 80% harder than a conventional hammer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set this and we're going to listen to it, and I think you'll agree that it has a quality of sound that is second to none. So you've got a minute repeater with welded sapphire gong, trebuchet hammers, sky chart, annual calendar, zodiac, flying tourbillon, sidereal and mean solar time. Let's fire this up. I won't wax lyrical about the finish, but your eyes don't lie. It's the highest grade that Jaeger-LeCoultre can provide. And impressively, though this is a minute repeater, it's 50 meters water resistant. We'll do a quick loom shot here. It's a loom shot. We'll do a quick wrist shot. It's a big watch. You're going to need a wrist of 17, 18 centimeters circumference to wear this well. But if you can, it's like your own private observatory. It's like owning the sky. A watch, technically and artisanally, second to none. You can even see that the dial features real rose-lathe guilloche and a gradient lacquer, light at the center and dark at the edge. A watch that offers everything. And for like half the price of a green dial steel Nautilus. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.